Good morning. My name is Batavia Owens, and this video is in reference to Chapter 9, the procedures for conducting an experiment in a textbook, in the research methods, designs, and analysis textbook. The key points that will be discussed here would be describe the decisions that are made after the research design has been established, but before data collection begins. Explain the institutional approval process. Explain the importance of sample size and the concept of statistical power, and describe the elements of research procedure, and explaining why it's important to conduct a pilot study prior to data collection. So, when addressing the necessary conduct for a research study, the researcher must design their study around a research question. So a number of steps must be taken in order to conduct this research and collect this data. So after this presentation, you will understand how to conduct an experiment. So now we're going to discuss the issues concerning human and animal participants, and how to gain institutional approval for animals and humans. So for animals, you have to make sure you contact the institutional animal care and the animal care and use committee. So to have the study approved by them, and you have to follow the protocol. In most cases, the research question dictates the type of organism to be used. So you have to make sure that you let them know what kind of animals will be included in this research. So for humans, you have to contact the IRB, the Institutional Review Board. It determines if humans are treated appropriately. So you must have consent from each participant, and the IRB has to approve the consent and the consent procedure for each of these participants. So human participants are generally selected based on convenience and availability and willingness to participate. While minors have to have consent from a parent. So if the research participant is a minor, the parent or guardian must provide consent. And if the minor is over the age of 7, he or she has to give assent, and the parent or guardian must provide consent as well. The investigator must report the nature of the participant selection. So if I'm saying I'm going to do a research study on children from the ages of 11 to 15, I have to make sure that is described in the research study. So before you conduct research that includes animals or humans, you have to make sure you say, hey, I'm going to use this type of animal, or I'm going to use this age group. I have to specify that. This information is good for people who might want to replicate your study and see if you might have missed some findings. So to receive approval from the review board, you have to describe in detail how you will conduct your research study. Data collection. The primary rule to follow you have to follow the experiment closely. So if I say I'm going to do this step, this step, this step, I can't do that step, then this step. So you have to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, not step 4, 3, 2, 1. You put a great deal of work into developing the procedure, so if you don't follow it exactly, you run the risk of introducing contaminants into the experiment. Now, if this should happen, you will not have the answer to your research question. Okay. Pilot studies. Let's talk about these. So when we're talking about pilot studies, we're going to explain why it's important to conduct the pilot study prior to conducting the research. It's important because you want to run through the entire experiment with a minimum amount of participants to see what can happen and what adjustments you might need to make for your experiment. So the pilot study is basically a run through the entire experiment with a small group of participants, and will provide a great deal of information on what you need to change in your experiment. So it's the best way to test the experiment and determine if changes need to be made. Let's talk about sample size. So sample size is important because the number of participants can vary. Too many participants or too few participants could manipulate your research results. You can decide which type of participant will be used in the research, and it may have built a bias because samples are not usually randomly selected. So I can say I want to choose these students from ages 15 to 19, and that could be my classroom. It could be my class, and I could choose the best students. So that skews the information just a little bit. So you want to make sure that you don't have a built-in bias, because that's going to mess up your research results. Types of research instruments. So a computer is generally used to run tests. Computers are more used now, and it's easy to record data by typing it into a computer rather than writing it. Advancements in technology have made certain research possible for today. Without these advancements, the research would have been impossible to conduct. So computers are the #1 research instrument used in today's research. Let's talk about this research procedure. My last note I have here, the research procedure. Let's specify it specifies all of the details of the procedure. So my research procedure outlines every step that I'm going to take in the experiment that I have to carry out. So for animal research, this means not only specifying the conditions of the laboratory environment, but how the animals are going to be handled in the laboratory, also specifying how they are maintained in maintenance quarters. So you're going to make sure that you are treating the animals with dignity and respect, and they are well taken care of while conducting the experiment. Okay, and with humans, you must specify what the participants are to do. So if I say I'm going to observe the students in this classroom, I need to make sure that I'm saying what course it is, how many students are there, their age group, how they are to be greeted, what type of nonverbal behavior, as well as verbal behavior that the experimenter is to be engaged in. So you have to make sure that you outline every step of the experiment. And that pretty much sums up Chapter 9, the procedure for conducting an experiment, in the text from Research Methods and Designs and Analysis. I hope you enjoyed viewing this video, and you have a great day.